Well, good morning. A couple of weeks ago, I got an email from Tom, our vicar, asking me to preach the second sermon in this Exodus series. He said he had entitled the sermon Preparation, as the story, in his opinion, seemed to lose a bit of pace in chapter 2. Now, until I looked it up, I had forgotten the content of Exodus chapter 2, and from Tom's email it sounded as if not much happened and it might be difficult to fashion a whole sermon out of it. So imagine my surprise when I read verses 11 to 25 that we've heard read already. There's a murder. Well, he might have got away with manslaughter, perhaps, if he had had a good barrister. Then there's a mugging, or perhaps a gang fight. This is followed by a chariot chase. Well, I sort of made that up, really, but you know what I mean. Followed by an episode of Country File at the well, and a romantic encounter, a wedding, and a baby. It has the makings of a great movie. I wondered, how much excitement does Tom need to get him going, if he thought all that was a bit slow? In fact, I guess Moses' story is pretty familiar to many of us. Perhaps you grow up with pictures of the Moses basket in the bulrushes. Perhaps we've seen the numerous cinematic interpretations of the story. What can we learn from this section, squeezed between Moses' semi-miraculous rescue from the Nile and his life-changing encounter with God at the burning bush, which is coming up in chapter 3? Does it have anything to say to us now, in the midst of the drama in which we currently find ourselves? I came up with 3 things that I think will encourage us. Firstly, God can turn horrors into hallelujahs. One of the constant refrains over recent weeks is, are there any silver linings in the COVID cloud? In other words, is there anything good coming out of the coronavirus pandemic? On the face of it, and for many people, the answer will be not really. Many have been really ill. Others have, of course, died, and family and friends have been unable to be with their loved ones as they died, nor able to hold a proper funeral. A member of my extended family who is in the police force is involved with a team who deal with domestic violence. There's been a massive, terrible increase. Loneliness and isolation increase mental illness. For many, the economic consequences are devastating. I could go on and on. Now, Moses must have been in this sort of state as he fled Egypt. Here was a man used to luxury. He had grown up and served in the courts of Pharaoh, although it is Joseph to whom is attributed the invention of tennis, by the way, serving in the courts of Pharaoh. Got it? Sorry about that. But of course, he was acutely aware of his Jewish roots and is incensed at the sight of an Egyptian beating up a fellow Hebrew. He hides the body, but next day he finds out that his secret is out. Imagine Nelson Mandela in our times, incensed at the treatment of blacks and coloureds in apartheid South Africa, rumbled, arrested and tried. But it's not Robben Island for Moses, but flight to the land of Midian, way north. But there is a silver lining as he encounters and rescues the 7 daughters of Jethro. 7! Some silver lining that. And then marries Zipporah, and in due course starts a family. Things begin to turn around. What do I hear happening now? There are waves of generosity sweeping the nation. Think Captain, now Colonel Tom, for instance. Or consider the number of meals being provided for people. Or factor in the new and huge appreciation of all who work for NHS and other essential jobs. Far more people are praying than ever before, we're told. Our Monday evening prayer Zoom at Swimbrook has doubled in numbers. More people are listening to sermons and testimonies than ever came to church. While some families are torn apart, others find new ways of living and loving. I'm not underestimating the pain of COVID-19, not for one moment, any more than I underestimate the trauma of Moses fleeing Egypt in terror. But there was, and there always is, a silver lining. God is in the business of turning horrors into hallelujahs. I think we can be encouraged by 2 more things from this story. God knows the end of the story, and we don't. In many ways, history is the story of great men and women. Ancient Britain is forever associated with Boadicea. William the Conqueror's invasion of Britain effectively ended the Dark Ages. Henry V established the Tudor dynasty with major consequences for us all. Many consider Elizabeth I the greatest ever English person. Or consider the impact of an Oliver Cromwell or Napoleon, or in the United States, my hero, Abraham Lincoln. Or more recently, Winston Churchill. Perhaps in due course we will add the name Boris Johnson to that list, perhaps to our surprise. All these people were deeply flawed, like Moses. Their misdemeanors and weaknesses are well chronicled, but they had huge influence. Make no mistake, Moses was a very great man. God had a great story ahead for him. We shall study that in the coming weeks in this series of sermons. But right now in the story, he is wanted for murder and is an alien in a foreign land. No friends amongst his own people, no fortune and no future, it would seem. But God knows better. Moses will lead his people to freedom and the promised land. He will receive the 10 Commandments, the law that has shaped our history. Here in chapter 2, we're in the middle of the story, well, near its beginning, really. And that is where we are in the coronavirus story. We don't know the last chapter, but God does, and he can be trusted. Time for a joke quickly. Did you hear about the vicar who challenged his congregation to put a note in the pulpit with any word they like on it, and he would preach from a Bible text on it? Next Sunday, he climbed into his pulpit as usual, and he read the word constipation. Without hesitation, he turned to the book of Exodus and read, "Moses took the tablets and came down from the mountain." Sorry about that, it's got nothing to do with the sermon, but I thought it might cheer you up. God hears our cry for help and remembers his covenant. As I close, look with me at verses 23 and 25 of Exodus chapter 2. Let me just read them to you again. During that long period, the king of Egypt died. The Israelites groaned in their slavery and cried out, and their cry for help because of their slavery went up to God. God heard their groaning, and he remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. So God looked on the Israelites and was concerned about them. What is happening in our world today? The people groan in their agony and cry out. More people praying. Where does that cry go up? God heard their groaning and remembered. What did he remember? Well, actually, of course, he had never forgotten. Just felt like that, as it might do for you right now. God has forgotten. But no, he remembers that he created human beings in his image because he loves us. He remembered that he had made a covenant with Israel, that they would prosper and all the nations of the world would be blessed through them, through their descendants, the descendants of Abraham. He remembered then, and he remembers now. We shall see that Moses in chapter 3 encounters God in a wonderful and very personal way in the burning bush. It led him eventually to the mountain where he met God face to face and received the law. Much later, as the writer to the Hebrews tells us, we do not come to a mountain, but to Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant, and to the sprinkled blood that speaks a better word than the blood of Abel. God's hand is on Moses because he is to be the rescuer of his people. So important was he that Jewish people still observe the Passover on Friday evenings. They remember Moses. We learn so much from him. But we come to Jesus, the rescuer of the whole world, the one who fulfills the promise to Abraham. We may feel this morning locked in, like the Israelites were in Egypt. We may feel as if God has forgotten us. But the blood of Jesus speaks forgiveness, and the resurrection speaks of a new creation. A day is coming when there will be no more death, or crying, or mourning, or pain, or I might add, no more COVID-19. He does not forget, as Captain Tom reminded us so eloquently, you will never walk alone. You will never walk alone. I think I can sing it even as badly as him.